Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak from the BitcoinPodcast.com, here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm here to talk about Bitcoin with uh, host number Trace of the Bitcoin Podcast. Dr. Corey Petty will be co-hosting. If you wanted to say hi.
What's up, guys? Host number 3, Bitcoin Podcast. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining. We are going to be speaking with Ryan X. Charles of yours.org. Ryan, if you don't mind, please introduce yourself to my audience and let them know who you are, how you got into Bitcoin, and what you do in the industry, please.
Sure. So I'm a co-founder and CEO of yours.org. It's like Medium with a paywall. It's a social blogging platform where people can post content and they can put a micropayments paywall inside their content. So for instance, you could charge 10 cents for an article. So I've been in the space for a long time. I go all the way back to 2011 when I first discovered Bitcoin. I was getting a PhD in physics at the time. And I was just really fascinated with Bitcoin. And I thought it was remarkable technology with a huge potential to change the world. I thought this could be the foundation of a future world financial system. So fast forward a couple years, I ended up ultimately leaving my PhD to pursue Bitcoin full-time. And I worked at 3 different companies before ultimately starting my own company. I worked at BitPay as a software engineer. I worked at BitGo as a software engineer. And I worked at Reddit as the cryptocurrency engineer. So I had a sort of a diverse experience doing a lot of sort of consumer-facing Bitcoin wallets before sort of ultimately trying to bring Bitcoin to a mainstream audience, which is how we ended up building our yours.org.
Speaking of yours.org, which started as Decentralize All Things, now known as Yours, or the Yours Network. Could you do me a favor and maybe give us an origin story of how that became to be known as, what we know now as yours.org?
Sure. So I worked at Reddit from about it was 2014 to 2015. And I was actually only there for about 4 months, which is a very short time to work anywhere. What happened was when I was working at BitPay, I got contacted by a recruiter at Reddit. And I thought, well, okay, this is just really interesting. Reddit is hiring a cryptocurrency engineer. There's a lot of potential to bring cryptocurrency to Reddit. Wouldn't that be cool? I mean, just think of all the things we could do there. So I interviewed there and ultimately decided to leave BitPay and join Reddit. And I reported directly to the CEO, whose name is Yishan. But there was sort of unrelated turmoil going on at Reddit at the time. And the CEO, Yishan, resigned after I was there for about a month and a half. So what ended up happening was my project stopped making any sense at the company after Yishan resigned. It was the new leadership that ended up taking over the company had their hands full with all sorts of other things. So I had to sort of shelve what I was doing and ultimately had to leave the company just based on the direction that they were going in did not involve cryptocurrency. So fast forward several months to the summer of 2015, and about a little less than 2 years ago, I wrote an article called Fix Reddit with Bitcoin. And this was while Reddit was going through this sort of community backlash. So it's a long story, and I don't even there's so many details to share, and I frankly forget most of it because there was so much that was going on at Reddit at the time. But there was a whole lot of turmoil, and it ultimately reached this crescendo where it revolted against the company. And so there was a period of a couple weeks in the summer of 2015 when a bunch of the major subreddits would voluntarily shut themselves down in protest against the company. And this ultimately led to the CEO at that time, whose name was Ellen Pao, who took over after Yishan left. She had to resign in the midst of all this turmoil, and they brought back Steve Huffman. And so I wrote this article called Fix Reddit with Bitcoin in the midst of all this turmoil. And the idea that I sketched out in this article was, well, what we need to do is we need to solve, these problems that Reddit has using, decentralization. Let's create a decentralized Reddit that's powered by monetization to get everyone paid appropriately for doing all these functions, things like moderating. If you're a moderator, you should be paid. People that host content, if you're hosting it, you're the person delivering it because it's decentralized, you should earn money. And of course, the people that create content, they should earn money. I mean, they shouldn't just be posting stuff for free on somebody else's server and not being paid anything. They should be paid for the work. So that was the idea that we sketched out, or I sketched out in 2015. I was able to, there were a lot of people that were interested in this on the basis of this article. So we just sort of started a little grassroots community, and I just attached the label DAT to it, D-A-T-T, and D-A-T-T stood for Decentralize All the Things, which is just a meme in the sort of Bitcoin and decentralization world. So it was called DAT at first, and at first it was basically this open source project that was somewhat, sort of lacking in direction, and it's a long story, but eventually I decided to get serious about turning it into a company. We rebranded to Yours because Yours is easier to understand to anybody. Not everybody understands the meme, decentralize all the things. That was kind of a Bitcoin in-joke. But a mainstream audience can understand what the word yours means. If it belongs to you, it's yours. It's your content, it's your money, it's your community, so it's yours. So it was a name that meant something more to a mainstream audience. I got a co-founder whose name is Clemens Lay, who's one of the contributors to the project going all the way back to the beginning. We ultimately, we incorporated, we ended up raising money and all that. So a little bit more to the story. I'll give you a little, so that's sort of the origins. The more recent history after Clemens and I started working together was, well, we realized it was actually incredibly hard to make everything fully decentralized. And we thought, okay, well, what's the most important problem we want to solve? We decided to focus on what we call the content monetization problem. Let's first focus on just getting creators paid. If we can do that, we can start doing all these other things. So we can start getting curators paid and moderators paid and hosts paid. But let's put that on the back burner for now and just make something that gets creators paid. And to do this, we knew we needed micropayments. So, and for legal reasons, we needed non-custodial micropayments. That is to say, the company shouldn't be in possession of the user's funds. And this is a question we've revisited sort of a number of times throughout our company's history, because it's so much harder to make it peer-to-peer that we question ourselves on this. I even tweeted it recently and asked our users whether they wanted us to sort of continue doing it this way. And they do. And for legal reasons, we basically have to. That is to say, over the past something like 15 months that we've been working on this, almost all of our effort has been on making our payments peer. So the users, send small amounts of money directly to each other for zero fees. This has been the bulk of our effort making that possible. Let's see. So then to conclude, we launched our alpha recently. It's like Medium with a paywall. It is available on yours.org. So it's live now. We only launched the alpha a few weeks ago. And we have a number of people that are posting content and paying each other and whatnot. And you'll notice there are a lot of bugs. So our priorities right now are basically just fixing all the bugs that we have, and so that we can start getting to the point where we can implement some of the other payment models that we have.
Yeah. So I've been a follower of yours for quite a long time, and I was curious because I knew that basically what was keeping you from launching a while ago was creating this Lightning Network-esque micropayments platform that allowed people to send very small amounts of money without any fees, which was necessary because previously you were built on Bitcoin. And as the fee market rose and sending transactions or even initiating payment channels on Bitcoin became prohibitively high for small amounts of tips, you made the transition over to Litecoin. And I was curious about the decision making of that transition, and as well as the aftermath of that decision, because the push of SegWit in Bitcoin took so long, which kept pushing you back into releasing something. The enablement of SegWit on Litecoin enabled you to say, okay, we can get started. And since since Lightning and SegWit on Litecoin is just inherently cheaper because the market cap is cheaper, transactions are cheaper on Litecoin, it is a better utility for the type of platform you're trying to build. So can you walk us through kind of the decision making to go there and how you feel about that decision afterwards. And so
Sure.
for other people trying to make that same decision, what can they expect when making that leap of faith?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit more detail to the story because we did not make this decision lightly. We were as pro Bitcoin as it gets as a business, and I'm also personally pro Bitcoin. Like, I used to be a Bitcoin maximalist. I thought that the altcoins were pointless. That's probably too strong of a word, but it's more like why need one new form of money for the future. We need something like digital cash, and Bitcoin seemed to fit the bill for most of its history. So let me give a little bit more of the story. So in early of last year, Clemens and I start working on this full time together. We're getting serious about creating into a business. We're like, well, we need micropayments. Bitcoin, when we started, was about 5 cents for a transaction, which seemed very high at the time. That was actually a lot higher than it had been. And we thought, well, if the content's only going to be like 10 cents, a 5-cent fee is extremely high. So let's implement this Lightning Network type technology based on payment channels so that the fees are zero while still maintaining the peer-to-peer aspect of that. So it took all this time to build it. It took a long time. I think it maybe took about 6 months to have like a testnet prototype. Took maybe another 6 months for it to be working well enough that we could use it with real money. We got very close to launching on Bitcoin. But what happened along the way was fees on Bitcoin got so high that it became difficult even to just onboard a user. So here are the numbers. On Bitcoin, it costs something like, the latest number, I haven't checked today, but as of yesterday or 2 days ago, it's about $2 for a Bitcoin transaction to confirm in 1 or 2 blocks. Opening a payment channel and closing it takes about 3 transactions total. It can take as many as 5 depending on how you count it. But let's just say it's 3. That's a minimum. That includes opening it and closing it. So that's $6. So that means if you open a payment channel for $10 and your payments are predominantly one way, that means the fees are 6 divided by 10. Well, that's 60%. That's a huge final fee for a $10 payment channel. It also means you can't open a $1 payment channel because that wouldn't even cover the fees. So it really means you got to open like a $50 payment channel or $100 payment channel, even a $100 payment channel. Well, that would be a 6% fee, which is actually not competitive with Stripe or PayPal. So you'd actually have to open like a $200 payment channel to be competitive with Stripe or PayPal, which is about 3%. So the fees on Bitcoin got so high that even when you're in the system, the fees are low. But just getting a user into the system and out of the system became really expensive. So just for reference, I mean, just consider that if you sign up for any other social media website, you don't normally have to pay $6 just to join. And it's not like that money goes to the company, it just goes to Bitcoin miners, right? It's pretty expensive to just begin using the app. So fees got so high, we had to start looking around for an alternative. Now, again, a little bit more story here. We actually don't use SegWit. So it's a bit of a misconception that we switched to Litecoin, that Litecoin uses SegWit. We actually made a decision early on when we started building this technology on Bitcoin not to use SegWit because SegWit wasn't in Bitcoin yet. And we wanted to make sure we could launch. We didn't know how long it would take for SegWit to go live. So we decided to implement everything in a way that doesn't use SegWit. So this basically means, I could go over it, but it's slightly worse. It has a few properties that would be better if only we could use SegWit, but it's not that much worse. The users won't really notice so long as the fees are low. So the real reason why we switched to Litecoin wasn't because of SegWit. It was because the fees on Litecoin are so much lower that it makes a huge difference. So on Litecoin, a transaction is something like, I don't know, it's 3 or 5 cents. It varies a little bit. The price of Litecoin is up too, and the way their fees are calculated is slightly different than Bitcoin. But roughly speaking, Litecoin is about 50 times or 100 times cheaper than Bitcoin, for a transaction. So onboarding a user is something like 10 or 15 cents instead of $6. So it's much, much, much cheaper. So that's it. So that's why we switched. And with respect to sort of how we feel about it and why, and so, I mean, we didn't really have a choice. So we're getting close to launch, and we're like, gosh, we can't require that our users spend $6 and open a $100 payment channel. And that's way too high. They'd have to deposit $100. Plus we have bugs. So like that'd be a disaster if someone lost $100. I mean, if they, it'd be so much better if they put $1 on there and they lose $1. I mean, not that that's good, but it's a lot better to lose only $1 instead of $100 if there's a bug. We didn't really have a choice. We had to look around. We chose Litecoin because it was so similar to Bitcoin that it was easy to switch to. So it had all of the features that we needed from Bitcoin, including check sequence verify, which is a new opcode that didn't exist in Bitcoin until recently. And it does exist in Litecoin. I don't know if there are any other altcoins that have it. Litecoin's the biggest one that has that. So it had all the technical things that we needed. It had the low cost. And so we just didn't really have a choice. So we switched to Litecoin. I wrote an article called Why We Are Switching to Litecoin, which is actually now my most popular article ever. And we actually got a very positive response from the Bitcoin community and certainly the Litecoin community for switching, because our reasons for switching were so clear that, of course, we would be kind of crazy to launch on Bitcoin. I mean, for our purposes, Litecoin is better.
I know you get that. I know you get asked this a lot, or I bet you do, but I know the viewers are interested. What is your original thoughts of Steemit and your expectations of what they would be by now, as opposed to the thoughts of their current state?
Yeah, sure. So Steem is actually very close to the original vision of our project. So Steem made something that is a decentralized community. It's based on a blockchain. And they have, they're trying to solve this problem of getting people paid for creating and curating content. But they made a bunch of decisions that are completely the opposite of a bunch of decisions that we made. Some of their decisions are good and some of them are bad. So the good ones are things like, well, they were able to basically, without having, building a blockchain is a non-trivial undertaking. But by not having to build on an existing one, Layer 2 technology, they were able to get it done and launch faster than we were. So that's a huge, sort of benefit to the way that they developed their technologies. They just launched faster. They also made their own coin. And again, this has ups and downs. It made it easier for them technologically. Like it would have been harder probably for them to use an existing coin. I mean, what would they have to make a sidechain or something, which is still to this day kind of speculative. I think maybe RSK will launch soon, but it's probably easier. I think that's why they were able to launch faster. But these choices have some downsides too. So one of the choices they made was to make all the content free, so you can view it for free, which is good, and some people like this. A lot of people like it, actually, and it sounds like nice that the content is free. The problem with this, though, is that they had to come up with these really sort of complicated mechanisms to make sure that people got paid. Economics are really hard to understand, and one of the consequences of their complicated economics is that basically they have a few people, something like 20 or so whales, that own most of the Steem currency. And so when you talk with Steem users, this is usually their #1 complaint about Steem, is that, gosh, if I don't make these whales happy or if I make them angry, I don't earn any money. So they built a sort of, it's I forget what the name of this political system would be, but it's something where like the rich people control the platform, which is not something we want to do. We're trying to avoid that. So that's probably the worst problem. There are a few others just involving the complexity of the way their payments work. It takes a long time to withdraw. It takes a long time to get your money out of it. Our system and our product are very, very different. So we are based on purchasing content. So the users buy content. You can't see things for free. This is bad in the sense that, oh gosh, I can't just see everything for free. But it's good in the sense of the information that we get about quality content and so on. And it's good about just giving direct, honest payments to the people that create content. So basically, we believe, and we're still alpha in our project, but we believe this will create higher quality content. That content that's worth paying for is good. So this is how you really identify the best content and make sure the right people are being paid in the right amounts, is just by buying content from people. And we have a bunch of curation strategies that we'll add later to highlight content that's worth paying for. So it's a totally different product. So we'll see how it works out with yours versus Steam. They are quite different. I think there's room for both of them. I don't think Steam is going to work for a lot of people, but I also don't think that yours will work for everyone either. And I think that for people that really want their content to be free, or for consumers that are unwilling to pay for content, they can use Steam for those things.
They have an issue right now with censorship, and I was just curious, how does yours plan on combating plagiarism and things like censorship?
Sure. So so these are two different things. So we'll talk about censorship first. We value censorship resistance, and I don't know your guys' thoughts on this. This is a sort of a divisive debate in the Bitcoin community, but I regard r/Bitcoin as being censored. And so those of us in the Bitcoin community that I sort of watched what I consider to be, again, I don't have to feel free to disagree with me if you're on the other side of this debate. Some people say it's well moderated. I don't think it's well moderated. I think it's censored. But we can see the impact that has had on the Bitcoin community. And so that's just a data point for those of us in the space. We can see that occurring. But there are countless other examples you can throw out there that, censorship is bad. We're not trying. We don't want to censor the community. So the answer here is we got to have good moderation. So we need to develop mechanisms that allow the users to moderate the platform in a manner that works well. So I'll give you a couple examples of this. One of the ways to treat censorship on a platform like Reddit would be to let people choose their own mods. So what if you subscribe to the Bitcoin sub-community and you disagree with the actions the moderator is taking, and you want to see all of the posts that they have deleted? So from your subjective personal list of moderators, you just remove the moderator that you don't like. So the moderators in that case would end up being, they're not like the owners of the subreddit or the community. They are like sort of opt-in, people who filter the content. So that's one of our ideas.
Hire curators almost.
Yeah. Yes, and you could even imagine hiring them. You could even imagine using payments in other ways. You imagine like the way it works is when you choose a moderator, you're deciding to give, say, 10% of the payments to them. So there could be a market of moderators, and the better moderators would get more people to pick them as the moderator, and then they earn more money. So you can use market mechanisms to try to solve some of these problems. Now that exists at a sort of theoretical level. We haven't implemented yet, but that's one of our ideas about how to solve this on our platform. Plagiarism is a totally different issue though. So there are a couple of different ways we are addressing plagiarism. So it kind of does rope into this issue of censorship. Where do you draw the line with respect to deleting things? First of all, as a legal corporation, we will have to delete things that are simply illegal. So if someone uploads a Hollywood movie and we get, a DMCA notice, we'll have to take it down. So that's one of the downsides of the
we lose them.
Centralized. Our content storage is centralized. So we have to delete some things. But the other thing we're worried about is our users. So our users might have their content taken by some other user. And this is something that we've talked to many of our users, and they've expressed concern over this. Like, how do you prevent someone from just like buying my article once and then like reposting it somewhere else and charging for it? So we have a whole bunch of strategies to deal with this. I think this is a case where the best answer is like a collection of different tools. So one of them would be just a flagging system where the people can flag content that's plagiarized. Just getting some information from people that this is plagiarized helps clue in other users or the company to the fact that this is plagiarized. There are other things we can do that are similar to YouTube or other social media websites that have some automated tools to detect plagiarism. So you can do things like, there are actually databases of some content. So if you're comparing it to, say, Hollywood movies or music, you can look at databases and compare signatures of files and things of that sort. That's pretty sophisticated, but it's one of the sort of the tools in the tool chest. Another option is we can do things like, imagine you link to a YouTube video. We can know whether you are the owner of the account that the YouTube video is posted to. So that way, that's just another way to check, like, is it your video or are you just posting somebody else's video? So that just can fit into, this sort of array of different strategies that we can roll out as needed over time, depending on, priorities and when we need to solve these problems. So.
I've got something I kind of want to. It's a bit switching bases here, but so cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum have this somewhat inverse relationship with the current price of the asset and the utility, ease of utility of the asset. So, like for instance, as an example, as the Bitcoin price has gone up, the difficulty to use Bitcoin for certain types of applications has gone down because of the fees. And the reason why this isn't the case yet in Litecoin is because the market isn't big enough. The market cap isn't large enough to have this effect on the price. How do you see this playing out if, say, for instance, for some reason, a lot of people flow into Litecoin very quickly, artificially or inflating the price of Litecoin, which will then inflate the fees and the underlying, and then adversely affect the utility of how they interact with yours?
Yeah, so that's something we definitely are aware of. Now, basically, Litecoin is so technically similar to Bitcoin. So for the sake of your audience, like the differences that matter are there's more Litecoin total. I actually can't remember right now how much more there is. I don't know if you guys know, but there's a little bit more Litecoin total. Sorry?
I want to say there's 4 times more.
I think there's 4 times more because the blocks occur 4 times more frequently.
Yeah.
So that's another difference, is that the blocks occur every 2.5 minutes instead of every 10 minutes. So I think they might have done it so that they're basically 4 times more Litecoin. And then the proof of work is different, and of course it also has SegWit, which Bitcoin does not yet have. But the differences are pretty small. And that includes the 1 megabyte block size limit. So even though Litecoin has 4 times as many blocks as Bitcoin does, each block still has a 1 megabyte limit. And that means, you can only fit, well, it's about 4 times as much as Bitcoin. So that's about, if Bitcoin can handle a theoretical maximum of approximately 7 transactions per second, well, it'd be about 28 transactions per second on Litecoin, theoretical maximum. Now, the relationship to the price is, I would consider that a conjecture. Like, it does seem likely to be the case that the price either causes, increased volume or vice versa. So the, and then therefore, why are there fees? When blocks get full, there's some type of fee market that develops where you have to basically pay more to get your transactions in a block. But in any case, the point is that we're not there yet on Litecoin, but we will be there. I mean, it's definitely going to be a problem if Litecoin is successful, if it's more widely used. We're going to be in the exact same situation with Litecoin we are today with Bitcoin. So that is a problem. And a lot of people thought we were crazy for switching to Litecoin because you're like, but Litecoin has the same problem Bitcoin has. But that's only true in theory. The reality is right now, Litecoin transactions are 100 times cheaper than Bitcoin. So the current reality is that Litecoin solves the problem we have of lowering the onboarding and offboarding costs for users. Long term, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Hopefully this problem will be solved on Bitcoin and Litecoin can just copy the answer, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm not really sure. Could be that there are innovations on Litecoin that don't occur on Bitcoin. SegWit could relieve the pressure to some extent. So actually, Litecoin's blocks, now that it has SegWit and Bitcoin doesn't, not only does Litecoin has 4 times as many blocks, but the capacity of each block is higher thanks to SegWit. So maybe there could be further innovations on Litecoin that that make this a non-issue over time. I'm not really sure. We'll just see.
Yeah.
Long term, it's either going to be solved or we're going to be in the same exact situation we are on Bitcoin. So I don't know. But either way, we didn't really have a choice, because the fact that we are eventually going to have this problem on Litecoin was not a sufficiently compelling reason to make our users have to pay a lot of money to stay on Bitcoin. So it's still a theoretical problem at this day. And hopefully it'll be solved. And we'll try, and insofar as we can, we'll try to help solve that problem on Litecoin if we can. I'm not sure what we'll do, but it's something that we can look into and see if there's a way we can contribute in some way. But either way, I mean, I think if Litecoin is successful, it'll have the same problem. The best I can say is that we have more time to figure that out before that happens on Litecoin.
What I want to point out is, like, I guess another important aspect of that, I guess if you were the proverbial kick the can down the road, is that you're able to actually do something right now. You're able to launch your platform. You're able to build your community, your audience, and really grow the utility of the currency, as opposed to speculation of future utility, which what I would argue is the majority of the current use of cryptocurrencies right now. Yeah. And I am for anybody who's actually building something that can be used, that enables people to do things they couldn't do before, which is, I think, your goal, your underlying goal in switching over to Litecoin, is we can get started quicker and build the things that get used quicker if we switch over, which is what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that idea. I mean, I like the idea of being proactive. What would be an absolute disaster would be to see the same divisive debate occur on Litecoin that's occurring on Bitcoin right now. I mean, surely the fact that we can watch this unfold on Bitcoin for the Litecoin community is a way to anticipate this and try to be proactive about solving it beforehand. With respect, so we're still pro Bitcoin though. In fact, actually an interesting fact, so we have to hold cryptocurrency for our technology to function, because we have to fund payment channels to creators. So we hold Bitcoin, and actually to this day, so we had to buy Litecoin to be able to fund our channels to Litecoin users, but we actually kept more Bitcoin than Litecoin. So our business actually still owns Bitcoin, and we actually still own more of it than Litecoin. So we have an interest in a financial sense of solving this problem on Bitcoin too, at least insofar as it impacts the price. I mean, some people think that the price can just keep rising even with this problem on Bitcoin. But anyway, I mean, look, I think that the way to do it, we are proactive in the scaling debate. I was at a conference last weekend where, I'm a passionate supporter of on-chain scaling. Even though we developed this off-chain technology, we think that blocks should have greater capacity to lower the onboarding and offboarding costs for users. Insofar as we are able to, we're trying to contribute not just to the arguing on social media, but also to the theory. And the best we can do right now is basically just give our unique information about why we switched to Litecoin and why this matters to us, and exactly what the issues are, and try to help insofar as we can, solve the issue both for Bitcoin and for Litecoin, and for that matter for another cryptocurrency in the future.
To touch a little bit on what you said about Litecoin, because of Charlie Lee and all his hard work, the development on Litecoin is a lot more, I'd say, organized than on Bitcoin. So I see that any scaling issue, if they do come up with a very good way of solving that, it will be implemented way quicker than anybody could get on Bitcoin. So I feel like the switch to Litecoin was a great idea. I did want to go back to yours.org though and ask, what is the strongest community? I know it's still early, but so far, what is the strongest community, and what types of content are earning the most Litecoin?
Good question. So we aren't really measuring the payments right now. So I don't have a good answer to that. I mean, it's alpha, and you can just go there and look at it. Like there are a few pieces of content per day, so it's not like it's some wildly successful project yet. It is very much in the early stages. When we switched to Litecoin, we definitely got a lot of interest from the Litecoin community. And I haven't checked the front page today. Let me just, I'll sort of look at it in the background as I'm talking here. But the content was something like 50% Litecoin and 50% other stuff. So let's see here. Front page right now is, let's see if I see any Litecoin stuff. I don't really see that, but I do see, I see one post about Litecoin on it, and there's something like 20 pages on the, or 20 posts on the front page. But there's a lot of other crypto stuff. So we're probably, one of the metrics we had measured a long time based on the interest on like a mailing list and our Slack channel was that our community seems to be about 50% cryptocurrency advocates, and then about 50% other. And other would include things like content creators on social media like YouTube and Reddit, as well as traditional journalists and just people that come from like a content creator or sort of a media background of some kind. So cryptocurrency plus media. So we would get them both. And I'd say, roughly speaking, that's probably about what it is based on the content that I can see on here. So it's right now it's very small with a strong component of cryptocurrency, which I think is actually good because there's actually a need for high quality information in cryptocurrency. It's actually in many ways the perfect sort of initial audience. We need a way to identify the best content about cryptocurrency and blockchain technology and surface that content and get people paid for producing good content in this industry, because there's a lot of there's a lot of really good information, and there's also a lot of misinformation. And so if we can curate that content well, I think we'd be doing a good service. So yeah, so it's 50% cryptocurrency, 50% other right now.
You started out with this initial plan for having a curation model of like maybe paying out the people who give donations, like giving priority to the people who give donations first, so that if you've discovered content early, you're able to make a percentage of the other people that donated after you. And that's not currently how things work. You basically have, it's paywalled information. And so you read a snippet, and then if you'd like to read on for the rest of the remaining part of the article, you can pay a small fee and earn it. And that goes straight to the content creator. I know that these types of models are in your future, but would you have a timeline on the features that are coming out, or things you're planning on implement, and when we can expect something like that?
Yeah, totally. So with that model, so it was something we call the endorsement model. Part of the reason, there are a few reasons why we didn't do that one first. One of them is sort of, I guess I'll say sort of public relations. Because if you draw out how the endorsement model works, it looks like a pyramid. And we're like, no, it's not a pyramid. You don't understand. This is.
I modeled it thoroughly,
yes,
and it's.
Yes, you did model it. You did model it. Yeah. So, but it was really irritating having to defend, this model against people saying it's a pyramid. So part of it was, okay, well, paywall, like everyone understands it, and there's no public relations problem. So when I describe it as medium with a paywall, everyone gets it. They get that that doesn't currently exist. Even in a mainstream audience that doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency, they get the value in it. They may not think that, they may not love the idea, but they understand it, and there's nothing negative about it other than some people don't like the idea of having to actually pay for things. But the endorsement model is one of our models that we I'll call it, we have like actually a very long list of payment models. And we like that model because it makes it really easy to sort of solve this problem of like motivating people to pay for things, because there's always a profit motive. So if you click that button and you get, there's a chance that you're going to earn money by clicking that button, it makes it more worth clicking. So we like it for that reason. But there's another reason why we didn't do it, which is actually purely technical. The endorsement model involves making a bunch of payments. So for instance, let's suppose 10 people have upvoted something or they've endorsed it. And for the, I kind of skipped the explanation. I guess I'll explain it for your audience because no one probably understands what I'm talking about, so I'll explain it. So here's how the endorsement model works. The first person that clicks a button simply makes a payment to the creator. The next person that clicks the button makes a payment to the creator and to the first endorser. And the third person that clicks the button makes a payment to the creator, to the first endorser, and to the second endorser. So let's imagine the button is like 10 cents. So you divide up, you're the third endorser, you divide your 10 cents by 3, and you make 3.3 cents to each party. What this means is you can profit. So if you're the first endorser, and then like 1,000 more endorsers come and endorse that content, you're going to get a whole bunch of really small payments over time from each subsequent endorser. But the technical problem here is that, well, my gosh, that means if it gets 1,000 endorsements, you got to make 1,000 payments. And actually, our payment system is not ready to handle 1,000 payments in a single click. So it's, we need to make it so the purchase model is so simple, it makes one payment at a time. So there are two reasons why we didn't do it. One is this sort of public relations problem slash being easy to explain to our audience. Purchasing is just simpler, and there's no PR problem. And then number two, it's just technically it was easier to do purchasing than endorsing.
That makes perfect sense. Do you have an idea on like what you're planning on pushing out next to kind of expand the feature set of yours?
Sure. So first of all, we have really basic things that we have to push out, like for instance, the ability to edit a post, which you cannot currently edit anything, which is really annoying for those of us that have posted stuff on the site. You also can't currently see your own content anywhere. So once your content falls off the front page, unless you saved a permalink, you will never find it again. So we have to implement really, really basic things like that next. Next payment model that we like is actually, or at least this is, I would say it's my favorite. I mean, it's kind of debatable, like, probably what we'll do is we'll resume talking with our users to get their feedback on this, but I'll just say that my personal favorite next is actually what we call the comment model. And I really like the idea of letting the author choose a price for the comments. So on most websites, like I like to give YouTube as an example because YouTube has famously low quality comments. Not always, but often.
Shout out to YouTube.
Yeah. So imagine, so the way it works on YouTube, you can disable comments. Like if you expect you're going to be trolled for something, you can just turn off comments. So that's like as though you've set a price of infinite. No one can afford to buy a comment if you turn them off. Or the price is free. That is, anybody can comment. But why can't you just set a price of something like 10 cents or $1 or something like that for people to be able to post a comment? That way you can eliminate the lowest quality comments where somebody comes up and just cusses at you or says something sexist or racist or just trollish to you. But for people that are willing to make a small payment, so you weed out the lowest quality and keep only the high quality. The problem with that, of course, is that not everyone wants to pay. I mean, even the high quality comments, you'll get fewer of the higher quality comments as well if they have to pay for it. Mm-hmm. So we want to enable people to earn money from that. So what if you had to pay 10 cents to the author to post a comment, and the price is set by the author. So let's say they decide it's 10 cents. But what if other people that like your comment can bump your comment up on the page by tipping you? So they just give you an extra, a payment of say 10 cents or 50 cents or something to the commenter. So you can earn money for creating a good comment if it's the type of comment that other people really like and pay you for it. And there's actually precedent for something like this. This is actually exactly how Reddit Gold works. Except, so the way Reddit Gold works is if you really like a comment, you can give gold to someone. And it highlights their comment. It places a little gold icon next to the comment. But the problem with Reddit Gold is that Reddit Inc. gets the money, not the user. So wouldn't it be cool if you just gave the money directly to the user? Instead of giving them a gold icon, you just gave them the $5. So they earn money for creating good content. So that's my favorite next model. I'm not sure if that will be the one we add next. But we have that one. We have a whole bunch of others. We have 10 or 15 of them that are like all interesting, just like most of them that I have never seen these anywhere. I mean, once you have micropayments in a social app, it's just really fun to start brainstorming all the different ways you can use it. So we have a whole bunch of them. I mean, it's just a matter of which ones we like best, which one our users like best, and having sort of a some reasonable priorities, trying to figure out which ones are the most important.
Speaking of payment models, how does yours.org get paid? Where's the funds come from?
Yeah, so, well, the funds come from the users who have to get funds on the platform somehow. Either you earn funds on the platform directly for creating or curating your content, or you have to deposit it. We aren't integrated with Coinbase yet, but we intend to integrate with Coinbase soon, where you can just buy and sell Litecoin sort of in the app via Coinbase. So they have a nice widget where, for instance, for depositing Litecoin, which most people in the world don't have Litecoin yet. So you can just deposit it with a credit card. How do we earn money? Actually, right now we don't earn any money. We're taking 0% of transactions, mostly because we're still alpha, and so we feel it's premature to start charging. But we will take a percentage of payments. So the plan here is we're going to start with, and this is going to sound high to you guys, but it's less for like mainstream social media website. We're going to start with 20%. So the company will take 20%, users get 80%. YouTube and Amazon takes somewhere in the neighborhood of like 30 to 50% usually. So it's less than most of those. But we realize this seems high to a lot of people. So we realize there's a way we can sort of make it lower over time. If we just grow as a business, thanks to just scale, we can, our expenses will not grow as rapidly as the users and the number of payments. So we should be able to lower that percentage over time. You could think of it like Walmart. Like Walmart. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have these ads where they talk about how they lower their prices all the time. So we'll just lower the prices as we can afford to do so and as it makes sense. So we can get the prices down a lot lower, I think, over time. But we'll start with 20%.
I wanted to circle back to content on yours. Right now, and I hate to keep bringing up my ex, Steam It, but right now what we're seeing on their platform are girls and porn is what's really starting to make a lot of revenue. Is that something you don't want to see on yours, or is that, hey, come on over, make your money, who cares? Or like, because I could see some sort of penthouse open letter type thing where, you start reading it, you get into it, you pay for it, you finish your article, there might be a video or a picture below. Or is that just something you don't want to see on yours?
Well, personally, I have mixed feelings about this because I am not anti-porn, but at the same time, I would consider it a horrible disaster if our platform was used primarily for porn. So it's like, how do we walk this line? Because porn is actually, it's like a logical use case of the technology that we built.
Always the early adopter.
Yeah, they're early adopters, and it makes sense, for porn. So I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I think if somebody posted porn on there right now, no one has done that to my knowledge yet.
Sorry.
I think it's just a matter of time. Yeah, you're going to give somebody the idea and they're going to start putting porn.
Oh, man.
What have you done?
I'll say that so I work at Reddit, and Reddit is actually, actually partially powered by porn. Porn is actually quite popular on Reddit, and Reddit places ads on the porn subreddits. And the way Reddit deals with this is they just don't really make it widely known, but there's a lot of porn on Reddit. You just have to be specifically looking for it to find it. So it's not like you go to the front page and see that it's plastered with porn, even if porn is popular on Reddit. So they kind of hide it. I'm not sure if we'll take that approach. Here's a different approach. We've also thought about selling the technology to other companies.
Ooh. We
could imagine selling our technology to a porn company. Now, why would we do that? I mean, again, so I have mixed feelings about this. I am not personally anti-porn, but I don't really want that to be the primary use case of yours.org. It's just not how I want to spend my life. It's not a problem. I'm not trying to solve, the porn industry's problem. But it would make sense if we sold our technology to them. We could maybe just license the technology and then create, some contract or something where they can use it, for porn, but then they can't compete with us if they're using our technology or something. I'm just kind of brainstorming this as I go here. But my point is more like, we're going to try and walk a line where we do not focus on porn, but we're not anti-porn. I mean, if we don't do that, we're just opening up, an opportunity for a competitor. I mean, so I think that we need to, insofar as porn is legal and ethical, we will find a way to accommodate it in the same way society does, which is it's kind of in a dark corner somewhere, and you don't know it's there unless you're looking for it.
I would like to wrap up a little bit about yours, maybe open up an opportunity for some other topics, but I did want to end with what's the next step for yours and what's preventing that from happening right now?
So let's see, the next step for yours. One thing we've been reflecting on a lot is how long it took for us to get here. So the project is actually almost 2 years old in total, and my co-founder and I spent about 14 months just building this micropayments technology. So we're actually throttled by engineering, and so what we're really realizing is we might be too early for this idea. We still have a lot of work ahead of us for just finishing the technology and making it work well. I would say, what we're probably going to do is raise more money soon just to hire more engineers to help us finish and make the technology robust and work well. And I'm not even talking about features on the app. I'm just talking about making actual peer-to-peer micropayments work well is really, really hard. And I talked a little bit about the payment channels and stuff on Litecoin. There's a lot I could go into that I won't unless you really want to know, but doing this for real client side in a web browser was really, really hard. There were just a whole bunch of challenges. There's not only is there the protocol of making it, there is the weird advanced JavaScript and web browser web technologies we had to use to make this work are extremely unusual. It took a long time. Then there's like the economics of the app itself. So the next steps are basically we need to make the payments work well, and then we need to start adding these other monetization features for people. And the thing that's stopping us from doing it more quickly is just 100%, we're just completely saturated with this really hard technical stuff. So we'll have to raise more money and hire people to help us.
Awesome. All right, so to open up, I know Corey wanted to bring this up. So if you'd like, go ahead, man. The Craig Wright scenario, what do you got?
No, that's something that I was like passionate about bringing up. I know that Ryan is a larger fan of on-chain scaling, and as well as he attended the conference that Craig Wright gave this passionate speech about, if you will, and you were just crazy tweet storm of things he was saying as he was saying it, which gave a lot of us access to, I guess, the content of the talk without being able to see it firsthand. What was your experience there, and how do you think it went?
Yeah, so the conference was really fascinating. I tweeted that it was the best conference I'd ever been to, largely because the Craig Wright thing was extremely interesting, but it wasn't just that. I'm an advocate for on-chain scaling, and the conference was sort of spiraled out of what used to be the on-chain scaling conference, and they made it a little bit more general. But it was a conference that had a good mix of people from sort of both sides of this debate, as well as a lot of people that were just kind of interested in Bitcoin and not necessarily clued into the debate. And so it was comforting for me to see that, okay, there are actually quite a lot of people that agree with this idea of on-chain scaling, of let's just increase the block size. So it was really, really fascinating. I had really great conversations with people. I think the talk that Craig Wright gave, and of course Craig Wright is just probably the most, there's more drama around Craig than I think just about anybody else. He's probably the #1 most dramatized person I've seen, I think.
Well, when you come out and say you're Satoshi, that's gonna bring drama, regardless of whether or not you are, for the rest of your career in the space. I don't think you can get away from that from here on out.
I'm Satoshi.
Nope.
I tried.
So with that stuff aside, if you can somehow mentally compartmentalize that and set that aside, the speech he gave, I am 100% behind the philosophy that he was sketching out. And again, this is just, it's almost impossible to separate this, the drama here from the substance. But the substance that I got from Craig Wright is what I bought into Bitcoin back in 2009. Bought into in the sense that this is the philosophy that I agree with. Like, this is how I think it should be. So I was very encouraged by his talk, and he gave probably the most, certainly the most passion-filled speech at the conference, but also one of the most sort of passionate talks I've seen about scaling on-chain that I think I've ever seen, which I think needs to be heard just given the way this debate has spiraled out of, how can I put this? It's gotten to a point where, here's what I think. I think that it's gotten to a point where actions need to trump words. So the fact that Jihan was there, okay, Jihan is going to take what happened at this conference and he's going to go do something. Jihan meaning, he's owner of the largest mining company in China, in the world, but he's based in China. So that type of speech is like, we'll see if it influences Jihan. It might. I think it's about the only thing you can do, though, at this point to influence the miners, right? Like that level of passionate argument for on-chain scaling hadn't quite occurred yet. But now it's, we're going to see in the next couple months. I'm going to keep tweeting about this, but I don't think my tweets are going to have much impact. I think that the reality is it's basically up to the miners and the businesses, primarily the miners, to just actually act on this information now. So I really liked the conference. It was really, I loved talking with everyone there. I loved Craig's fiery speech about on-chain scaling, which I agree with. I guess probably part of the reason I like it is simply that I agree with him. And I'm going to be absolutely fascinated to see whatever it is that unfolds. So this is just for the record. This is July the 7th, 2017. We're going to see over the next 2 months something is going to happen. Oh, because like this argument is like coming to it's the crescendo of the argument, and we're going to either hard fork, we're going to get SegWit, or we're going to get 3 chains or something. Something is going to happen. It's going to be interesting.
What do you side with right now? The SegWit 2x opposed to the UASF BIP 148, or the unlimited versus core argument? And where you mentioned the 3 possibilities, where do you think we're more likely to end up?
So we are supporters of SegWit 2x because SegWit 2x achieved consensus of the industry. And this is really, really meaningful. The fact that DCG was able to lead the charge and get a whole bunch of companies, most companies in the space, to agree to something is really, really good. So we agreed with it just to be a part of that consensus. I think that's really important. And SegWit 2x does move us forward. I think both aspects of it. I think SegWit is primarily useful for solving transaction malleability. I think the 2x increase is also useful for just lowering fees. Now, my personal opinion on this and the sort of the stance of our business is just that, well, what we really need is lower on-chain fees. We think we've demonstrated just by building our technology and doing this for real on Bitcoin. And one of the things I didn't mention earlier, but as far as I'm aware, we're the only project to actually perform a routed micropayment on Bitcoin today because we don't need SegWit, like the Lightning Network people. So I think we have a good deal of credibility to make this argument. I mean, the fees on Bitcoin are so high right now that it's prohibitive to getting new users. So our stance is we really need lower fees. It's not about all these fancy technologies. It's about lower fees, and you need some on-chain scaling to get lower fees. It can't be solved exclusively with the Lightning Network and segregated witness. Now that's our position. That's there's clear reasons where we come at this debate. Other people have perfectly valid opinions. Some people value digital gold as the most important use case. Well, we value bringing new users into the space and solving their problem as being really important.
That being said, if I could tack onto that, I guess
sure.
If I could, I'm somewhat of a pragmatist in that my alignment is only where the users and developers go, because that's what grows utility and actually grows the network. So I don't care what the ideology that underpins the winning chain is, as long as there are people building and using the system. Because if you don't have either one of those 2 things, then you don't have a system, regardless of how strong your ideology is or how strong your belief system is. If you don't have people building, then nothing's going to happen. So whatever happens, I'm just going to follow the one that everyone else goes to, because that's where everyone else is. And Bitcoin and blockchain technologies are solely, fundamentally about building communities and people. And if you don't have that, then you don't really have anything.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think users matter. I think, you know, what you said. I'll just put a phrase on what you just said, Corey. I think network effect is really important. The one that people use is really important. Technical details aside, I mean, just that people are using it is a really meaningful property. So I totally agree with that.
I think that would be a good time to wrap things up, unless you guys have anything you just wanted to talk about that we didn't get a chance to bring up. Corey, Ryan, anything?
I guess I have one more quick question, because it springboards off of this. How do you plan to grow your network effect? Because that's a very large portion of having a media platform, a content platform, is you need people to go there and read the content if the content creators are going to make any money whatsoever.
Yeah. So I think there are two answers to that. First of all, I think if we actually succeed in our mission of having the best content on the internet, that's by itself is going to work to bringing more people onto the platform. With that being said, that doesn't really answer the question, like, how do we get all these new people and whatnot to begin with. There are a bunch of standard things you can do, like directly reaching out to people, which we have done and we will continue to do, to just try to pitch them on the project. But we have one of our payment models is something we call the affiliate model. This is what we call the sort of the virality option for our platform. Wouldn't it be cool if after you have bought a piece of content, you can share your affiliate link to that content and earn 10%, or perhaps the percentage is decided by the author. That gives you a reason to share content because you can earn money for it. And if you share it, you have to actually share it with people that actually follow through and buy it in order to earn money. So you have to share it with the right people. We think that option is a way to grow the platform when we are ready to grow. So we want to make sure we solve all these technical problems and make the product refined and whatnot. But when we're ready to like turn on virality, we'll implement the affiliate model. We have other models as well that are similar to that, but that one is, I think, the most straightforward growth payment model. Or to put it differently, you know, we're going to incentivize our users to share content by earning money.
All right, one of my last questions, it's definitely one of the most frequent I get, and I was just curious on, both of you feel free to answer this, what software wallet do you use, why, or hardware wallet, and which one do you recommend for people who plan on holding Bitcoin through August 1st?
I'll let you go first, Corey.
I guess that depends on how much money you have and what your risk associated with that money is. Like, if you want to hold for a long period of time, like at bar none, is make sure you have your private keys. You need to have access to your private keys so that whatever happens, you still have the coin and you can load it on whatever chain you feel wins. If you keep your private keys on a custodian, a service that takes custodian of your coins, then you're relegated to the choices they make on what chain they choose. So if you would like to have an opinion on what coin you'd like to use or what you think the winner is, you need to have your private keys. That being said, use whatever wallet allows you to have your private keys. I personally use paper wallets for large amounts of money and jacks for keeping multiple small amounts of currencies. It depends on what your risk is to those currencies. But bottom line, make sure you have your private keys and store them securely.
I 100% agree with that, Corey. I think it's one of the wonderful properties of this currency. You can have your private keys, which is not true when you have dollars in a bank account, right? So this is how you really properly possess your digital cash by having the private keys. With that said, so I use a couple different wallets on my phone. I use both Mycelium and Copay. I also use so those are for like smaller amounts of money. For larger amounts of money, I use both a Ledger and a Trezor. These are two different hardware wallets. So I recommend all of the above. I mean, those are all four of those, I would say, are high quality wallets. Copay, Mycelium, Ledger, and Trezor, all of those.
Awesome.
those are great.
Yeah, for solidarity, I guess I'll tell everybody, or everybody already watching knows, I guess. But I use Coinbase for spending. I use Jax for my multi cryptos, and I use my Ledger Blue for my bulk holdings, which I had on. They said that they will be, ready for whatever scenario happens. They'll be ready for their users, Ledger. So hopefully that's true, because I'm banking on that. All right. Don't forget, you can check us out on the BitcoinPodcast.com network. There I have my my podcast, Not Another Bitcoin Podcast, with me. Corey is host of the mother show, the Bitcoin Podcast. You can find us at the BTC Podcast on Twitter. Ryan, you want to let everybody know where they can find you, your content, and more information from you?
Sure, I'm sort of all over the place. Probably just visit my website, ryanxcharles.com. You can see all my links to social media. And of course, our company is yours.org. So please visit us at yours.org and check out our app.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by, watching live. And thank you, everybody, for listening on Not Another Bitcoin Podcast with Ken on the BitcoinPodcast.com network. All right, guys. Thank you and have a day.
Later, guys. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. This was awesome. Nice talking with you.